This past Friday, I found myself in Western Maine for a funeral for one of my relatives. So on my mother's side of the family, it's a very, very big family. And these are sort of like our family reunions now. We don't often see each other except outside of these funerals that we have. And I'm always meeting people that I'm related to that I had never met before or forgot that I was related to. And one of the guys who was at the funeral who married my third cousin twice removed. I had to do the homework here. I had no clue who he was, but he had already done the homework. And he came up to me after the funeral at the reception, and he said to me, hey, I'm so-and-so's husband, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to say that, I'm a Catholic, but I haven't been to Mass in many, many years. Kind of from a sense, I think, of guilt. And priests draw that out of people pretty easily. So, he made his confession in a room full of people. But it was very interesting because he immediately went into telling me why he hadn't been to Mass. Not, I'm sorry, please forgive me, but, it stopped doing it for me all those years ago. I said, okay. And he's like, yeah, so we started going to the Vineyard Church, where, they had better music and it was, a really nice message, and that really worked for us. And I said, oh, are you still going to the Vineyard Church? He said, no, that kind of stopped doing it for us too. I'm like, interesting. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to engage him, and it probably wouldn't have been appropriate in that moment anyway. But as I was driving back the 2 hours to come back here, it hit me how this dynamic plays itself out in our human condition. You and I, our brains are wired for pleasure. We do actions based on how they're going to make us feel. And if we lose sight of the things that are most important, which don't bring with them that rush of dopamine, you and I will often abandon them pretty quickly when something else presents itself to us. Somewhere in the last 60 or so years, religion has been turned into a hobby, something that you do because it makes you feel good, something that gives you a sense of purpose. And that's not completely untrue, but we can very easily forget that religion is primarily about the worship of God. It's primarily about ordering our lives to the worship and adoration of the one who has given us life. And this is not always something that is going to fill us at the experiential level to the brim. In fact, when you read the lives of the saints, many of them really had to just plow through in order to grow in holiness. They experienced desolation after desolation. Going to Mass, going to church, worshiping God wasn't making them feel giddy. It was actually painful for them. And yet we know paradoxically that it's really the things that we don't always like to do in life that are always the most important. And you think of exercise. It's my least favorite thing to do, but I got to do it. So if I don't, my muscles won't grow, I'll gain weight, I'll be unhealthy, right? But no, I want to sit in my recliner and eat chips and do my thing, right? That's what I want. And if I'm always just going to be seeking pleasure, that's the road that I'm going to go down. But there's a narrower road. It's the narrow road that Jesus talks about, where you and I, we have to make value judgments, not just based on how we're going to feel or how it's going to affect us, but what we know to be true. I know that I've experienced this when it comes to the practice of religion. There are many different things that I would like to be able to do to make Mass more exciting or to make it more sort of like available to us. And if I wanted to, I could put a Starbucks in at the back of the church, and I could put in lights and a fog machine, and we could sell this place out every Sunday if I really wanted that. But you know what? Even if I did all that, we'd grow tired with it after a while anyway. We have short attention spans. And when we bring God into our attention span, we run the risk of getting bored with him pretty quickly. I really do think that the majority of the reason why people don't find themselves in church on Sundays is not because they disagree with the teachings of the church. I don't even know if they've given much thought to the teachings of the church, to be honest. I think they just got bored. And what do when we get bored? We go do something else. And it's a lot easier now in our day and age to go find something else to do. I can experience God by scrolling on TikTok all morning long. But I'm not going to be able to experience him in church because my brain has been rewired for the exciting and the extraordinary, and I need more and more of that. And what we are gathered here to do, my friends, is old and boring and ancient. Who has room for that? And who among modern people is going to feel that experience? I bring all of this up because our readings today are really helping to ground us in the experience of God in the ordinary, boring, mundane things of this life. Our first reading today from the first book of Kings, we find the prophet Elijah. He's in a bad spot. He is sulking underneath a broom tree. And he's sulking because a gal named Jezebel is after him. She wants to kill him. Why? Well, because he just won a great contest against the false god Baal and the prophets of Baal. The God of Israel showed his great power and caused fire to come and consume a drenched pier and to make it burn where the prophets of Baal couldn't do anything. And Elijah was on a high, but Jezebel was so angry at this that she pursued the prophet Elijah in order to kill him. Now Elijah went from being up here on cloud 9. God is great. He's doing mighty things. He's putting these false prophets underneath his mighty right arm. And then what happens? Boom, all the way down here. Lord, they're pursuing me, and we are told that he starts to pray for death. Goes from one extreme to the next. And when the going gets tough, he begins to give up. Now what happens in the first reading that we hear today is God sends an angel to him. And what does the angel do? He says, Elijah, get up. I don't want to. Get up. You need to eat something. What? You're an angel from heaven. That's what you're going to do for me? You're going to give me food? How about you give me a sword? How about you give me, magic powers to make Jezebel disappear? How about you do something extraordinary just like God did with the prophets of Baal? And so he goes back to sleep. He tells the angel to scram. But the angel's persistent and says, Elijah, get up. You need to eat something. And the angel gives him a hearth cake and a jug of water. Really? Not even cake? Like sugary cake? You're gonna give me a boring hearth cake and water? Fine. I'll eat it. And when he does this, everything changes. He finds new strength. He finds new resolve. In this ordinary, simple meal that he would have turned his nose up to before, Elijah found the presence of God, he found his trust in God, and he was able to continue on in his prophetic ministry. Now let's fast forward to the gospel, because the first reading almost always relates to the gospel in our lectionary. And we have the continuation of the bread of life discourse in John's 6th chapter. And what we find here is the aftermath of the great multiplication of the loaves and fish. Jesus has just miraculously fed the crowds. Over 5,000 men, not including women and children. He's fed them extraordinarily and miraculously, and they love it. They're on board. This is great. They want more. And so they're gathering around Jesus, and he's telling them, you guys are missing the point. Your ancestors ate manna in the desert. I just fed you with breaded fish, but I have something more to give you that will allow you to never be hungry again. I will give you the bread of life, and whoever eats this bread will live forever. And they're incredulous about this. They're like, wait a second. Who are you to give us this bread from heaven? Are you greater than Moses? We know who your mother and father are. Who do you think you are? We don't want that. Remember what you did a couple of minutes ago when you fed us with the loaves and fish? Do that again. We like that. Give us more of that. And Jesus is persistent. He is saying, no, you are not going to find what you need in the extraordinary. You are going to find it among the most ordinary of things. I will give you the bread of heaven, which is my true body, and I will give you the fruit of the vine, which is my true blood. And when you eat this bread and drink this cup, you will live forever. And we are going to find out by the time we get to the end of the bread of life discourse that they have no interest in this. It's not enough for them. They want something bigger, grander, flashier, and immediately satisfying and satiating. And when they flat out reject him, when they say, you know what, thanks but no thanks, we're done, and the crowds leave him in droves, Jesus doesn't go chasing after them with a bag of tricks. He doesn't say, here's your Starbucks, here's your fog machine, here's your lights, I'll give you whatever you want. He lets them go. Why? Because they will never be satisfied unless they come down. And that satisfaction is not going to be a satisfaction of your gut. It's not going to feel as if you have eaten and have been filled. It will bring over time peace of soul. And Jesus' words to Simon Peter right after this, after everybody leaves, I think are very important. Because Peter would have been in the same position as everybody else. We really liked it when you did that miracle. It was great. It was exciting. People were around us. It helped us. But they don't leave. And Jesus looks and he says, are you sure you don't want to leave too? Because it's not going to be like this. In fact, pretty soon it's going to look like that. Are you sure you don't want to follow the crowd to the next flashy thing? And Peter says, Lord, where else are we going to go? You have the words of eternal life. That's the response, my friends. That's the response. If we, in our modern world, commoditize everything, and we do, we even commoditize the precious time that we have. What's the best bang for my buck? I'm going to do this so that I get the most pleasure, and I'm going to keep doing it more and more and more. And if we bring God into that, we will soon find ourselves outgrowing him. We will soon find ourselves leaving the pews and going away chasing the next thing that is going to make us feel better. But we have to make Peter's understanding of this our own. Even though you and I don't understand the full import of this mystery that we celebrate at this altar, we know that we are not going to find anything better anywhere else. We've all spent our whole lives chasing after the next best thing, only to be left hungrier and longing for more. When will we finally say, I don't know where else to go, and so I'm not even going to bother trying? Lord, you have said it. You have said that if I eat this bread and drink this cup, you will live in me, and I will live in you, and you will raise me on the last day. and I will live forever. I don't feel it, but I trust it. The most important things in life, my friends, and I think we realize this the older we get, are not the moments where we felt intense pleasure. It's the moment when we gave ourselves over to the most mundane of things. I'm with a lot of people at the end of their life. I never hear about, oh, I wish I had one more vacation, or I wish I had, one more car, or I wish that I had spent more money on beauty supplies, or whatever. You know what I hear? I wish I spent more time with my family. I wish I spent more time in church. I wish I spent more time with my grandfather in his tool shed. None of those things in the moment are exciting or thrilling. But they are among the most important things that feed the very depths of our souls. And until we give ourselves over to them without the expectation, mind you, that it's going to make us feel wonderful, we're going to keep chasing the flashy. And we're going to miss the extraordinary in the ordinary. The prophet Isaiah tells us that if we are going to know the living God, we must be still. Be still, he says, and know that I am God. That means we have to stop moving. We have to stop running. We have to stop overthinking everything and chasing after whatever our guts are telling us that we want, and be quiet. Be still and know that I am God. I thank God that even though we are very unpopular in the world today, and Christianity in the United States and in the first world is shrinking faster than we can breathe, I thank God that we are still holding fast to the truth for 2,000 years. Because even if the world doesn't want it, the world desperately needs it. And you are here today not because this is the most entertaining or the most extraordinary or the most whatever of your week. You're here today because it is the most important part of your week. And that is such a light for the world. Keep being it, and keep being still so that you can know your God more and more. And when this hungry world, and it doesn't know any better, it's going to keep chasing its next meal. When this hungry world turns its eyes towards you and tries to tempt you with it, remember that the most important things in life are the most ordinary. And help to bring others into an appreciation of that as well. I think probably one of the best things that we could do is to come here every week with our cell phones off, as much as we want to grab them in our pockets and check the latest thing, suppress that urge. When our minds start to think about all the fun things we're going to do later today, suppress that. And enter into the boredom of divine worship, because it's not about us. It is about the one who has given us life and who gives us his life. And he wants to fill us up to the brim, not in emotion, not in experience, but with himself. And that is what we receive at this altar. Let us open our fickle, hungry hearts today to him, to let him in, and to stop chasing the things that will only leave us hungrier. And when we struggle with this, to have the honesty and the faith to say with Peter, Lord, where else are we going to go? You alone have the words of eternal life.